Hi everyone, Timon Veller here from foxreviews.info. Welcome to this week's edition of the weekly Forex Algorithm Review. I hope you're all well and that you had a great trading week last week. Okay, well, in a few moments, what I'll be doing is highlighting a number of important trading areas, as well as management point areas and target areas on a number of different markets. And I'll also be taking a look at how price action moved last week as well. Now, before we get into this week's review, I first would like to mention how much I appreciate you all. And if you do appreciate this video this week, one way of showing your appreciation and support for the website and channel is by clicking the like button. Also, if you have a comment below this video. Anyway, let's get into this week's edition of the review and see what's happening on the charts this week. First pillar to is USD, and I'm on the daily chart. Last week in the review, I highlighted that I was expecting more continuation to the downside, potentially all the way down to the 113.11 zone area for all those people holding a sell trade on this market from the recent test of the 115.50 zone area. And as you can see, USD is almost just about to retest, very close to retesting the 113.11 zone area. So what I'd like to highlight in this week's review is much the same as last week's review, and that is that the 113.11 zone area is a great target area to the downside for all those people holding a sell trade on this market from the recent test of the 115.50 zone area, which is a potential pullback area on this market in the trend. At the moment, this market is in a downtrend. And also wanted to highlight the 113.11 zone area as not only a potential target area, potential long-term target area to the downside for all those people holding a sell trade, but also an area to the downside, a great area on this market to the downside to look for a potential bullish opportunity in this area. And a potential with the upside, potentially move all the way up to this previous high area and low, looking left back here as a potential management point area to the upside, or potentially a move all the way up to the 115.50 zone area to the upside. So overall on USD, on the 113.11 zone area as a potential target area to the downside for those people holding a sell trade on this market, as well as a great area on this market to look for a potential bullish opportunity in this area and a potential with the upside from this important zone. Potentially move all the way back up long term to the 115.50 zone area to the upside. Of course, depending on the evidence and how it forms in this important zone. Okay, well, that's it for that market. The next pillar to cover is US dollar Swiss, and I'm on the daily chart. US dollar Swiss moved as expected last week. It did pull back a little bit into this area, which I highlighted last week in the review as a great area on a pullback, a bit of a small pullback into this area. Pretty much pulled back to exactly where I said last week in the review. A great area on this market to consider a potential bullish opportunity. And as you can see, the market pulled back early in the week in this candle here, and then the bulls took control, pushing price strongly to the upside. So overall, US dollar Swiss was a great performer last week, moving as expected, pulling back into the 98.30 zone area, and then the bulls took control, moving price to the upside. And as you can see, price is just about to test this previous high area, very close. We are testing the lower end of this high area, which is a potential management point area to the upside for all those people holding a buy trade on this market from the recent test of this area. And so just be aware of that for all those people holding a buy trade, how potentially this market may continue all the way up long term to the $1.41 zone area to the upside. So we're going to highlight the $1.41 zone area as a potential long-term target area to the upside for all those people holding a buy trade on this market. And also want to highlight the $1.41 zone area as not only a potential long-term target area to the upside, but also a great area on this market to look for a potential bearish opportunity in this area. Of course, depending on the evidence and how it forms in this important zone to determine whether to consider a bearish opportunity in this area. And if the right sort of evidence forms, if the right sort of price action forms in this area, right type of bearish price action in this area, then potentially this would be a great area to look for a move all the way down to this previous high area as a potential management point area to the downside, or potentially look for a move all the way back down to the 98.30 zone area to the downside. So overall on US dollar Swiss, holding a potential long-term target to the upside for all those people holding a buy trade, which is the $1.41 zone area, and also on the $1.41 zone area as a great area on this market to consider a potential bearish opportunity in this area. Of course, depending on the evidence and how it forms in this important zone. Okay, well that's it for that market. The next pillar to cover is AUD, and I'm on the daily chart. Last week in the review, I held the 73.34 zone area as a potential long-term target area to the upside for all those people holding a buy trade on this market. And I also held that I was expecting more continuation to the upside. Now, looking at this recent price action from last week, price was mostly sideways. However, the bears are starting to push price to the downside. This is suggesting that the bears may be taking control in this area, which is no surprise to a certain extent because you got this previous low area looking left back here. So, in other words, the bears are trying to push price to the downside looking at this recent price action. So, the price may pull back this week. Okay, so price may continue to the upside to the 73.34 zone area, like I mentioned last week in the review, like so. And this would be a great area on this market to look for a potential bearish opportunity in this area. And a potential move to the downside. Potentially move all the way down to this previous low or all the way down to the 70.47 zone area. However, looking at this recent price action may also this week, instead of the bulls taking control and pushing price all the way up to the 73.34 zone area, price may pull back and retest the 70.47 zone area. So two scenarios that may happen. The 70.47 zone area would once again, if price pulls back and retests this area, would once again be a great area on this market to look for a potential bullish opportunity in this area. Of course, depending on the evidence, depending on what sort of evidence forms in this area, what type of bullish price action. And of course, you could be looking for evidence and an aligning bullish opportunity in this area on the 4 hour, the 1 hour, or the daily directly, or whatever time frame suits you as a trader. And if the right sort of evidence forms in this area, then potentially a trader could look for a move all the way up to this pullback high. If the market pulls back from this area all the way to retest this zone, or potentially a move all the way up to the 73.34 zone area to the upside. Okay, well that's it for that market. The next pair I'd like to cover in this week's review is the New Zealand USD, and I'm on the daily chart. Last week, New Zealand USD was a great performing market for all those people that took a sell trade in the 68.28 zone area. This was an area that I held last week in the review as a potential bearish area. And as you can see, the bears took control in this area last week and they pushed price all the way down to where price has recently closed at the end of the week. And so overall, New Zealand USD moved as expected, and the 68.28 zone area was a great performing zone, in particular for all those people that traded this important area on lower time frames, such as the 4 hour or the 1 hour time frame. And what I hold on this market this week, that I'm expecting more continuation to the downside, potentially all the way down to the 66.94 zone area. So wanting to hold the 66.94 zone area as a potential long-term target area to the downside for all those people holding a sell trade on this market, as well as wanting to hold the 66.94 zone area as a great area on this market to look for a potential bullish opportunity in this area and a potential move the upside, potentially move all the way up to the 68.28 zone area. Of course, depending on the evidence and how it forms in this zone to decide whether to consider a potential bullish opportunity in this area. So overall on New Zealand USD, on the 66.94 zone area as a potential target area to the downside for all those people holding a sell trade on this market from the recent test of the 68.28 zone area, and also on the 66.94 zone area as a great area on this market to consider a potential bullish opportunity in this area and look for a potential move all the way up, all the way back up to the 68.28 zone area to the upside. Okay, well that's it for the market. The next pillar to cover is GP Swiss, and I'm on the daily chart. GP Swiss was a great performing market last week, moving all the way to the long-term target area that I mentioned on this market for all those people that were holding a buy trade. from the recent test of the 125 zone area, which is a potential bullish evidence area on this market. Price moved all the way up last week to hit the 128.67 zone area. So once again, wanting to mention this market was a great performer, moving as expected, as what I highlighted last week in the review, all the way to that long-term target. And in this week's review, what I want to highlight is that where price is testing, which is the 128.67 zone area, that this is a great area on a pullback into this area to consider a potential bearish opportunity in this area. Of course, depending on the evidence and what time frame you trade this market, there may already be some of you that are already in a sell position on this market. So this is a great area to look for a move to the downside from this important zone. However, for all those people not in a sell trade, this is a great area on the pullback into this area. So on a bit of a retest, pullback into this area, great area to consider a potential bearish opportunity in this area. Of course, depending on the evidence, and look for a potential move to the downside. Potentially move all the way down to this previous low, looking left, and this high as a management point area. So this low is management point area to the downside, and this high is management point area as well. Or potentially look for a move all the way down, all the way back down to the 125 zone area to the downside. So overall on GP Swiss, I think that where price is testing right now is a great area on this market to look for a potential bearish opportunity in this area. And also mentioning that if you are already in a sell position on this market, such as if you traded this area on lower time frames, that this is a great area to look for a potential move to the downside from this important zone. Potentially a move all the way down long term to the 125 zone area to the downside. Okay, well that's it for that market. The next market to highlight is gold, and I'm on the daily chart. Last week in the review, I held the 1265 zone area as a potential pullback area on this market in the trend. Great area to look for a potential bullish opportunity. And I also held the 1291 zone area as a potential bearish area. And as you can see, the bears are pushing price to the downside. So overall, gold is moving as expected from what I mentioned last week in the review. And I'm expecting more continuation to the downside, at least down to the 1265 zone area. So I'm expecting price will pull back to the 1265 zone area. So for all those people that are holding a sell trade on this market from the recent test of the 1291 zone area, which is a potential bearish area on this market, wanting to highlight that I'm expecting more continuation on the downside, at least down to the 1265 zone area. And wanting to highlight the 1265 zone area as a potential target area to the downside for all those people holding a sell trade on this market, as well as a great area on this market to look for a potential bullish opportunity in this area. Of course, depending on the evidence and how it forms in this important zone. And a potential move to the upside, potentially move all the way up to the 1291 zone area, or potentially even higher on this market in the trend. Okay, well that's it for gold. The next market let's cover in this week's review is silver, and I'm on the daily chart. Last week in the review, I highlighted the 1480 zone area as a potential pullback area on this market in the trend, and a great area to look for a potential bullish opportunity if the market pulls back and tests this zone. So my bias is still the same on that as last week. And I also hold the 1561 zone area where price was testing last week as a potential bearish evidence area. And as you can see, price is moving as expected, with the bears taking control in particular at the end of last week. And what I want to hold on this market this week is that I'm expecting more continuation, more of a pullback to the downside. So expecting price will continue to the downside, potentially all the way down to the 1480 zone area. So wanting to highlight the 1480 zone area as a potential long-term trade area to the downside for all those people that are holding a sell trade on this market from the recent test of the 1561 zone area. And also wanting to highlight the 1480 zone area, like I mentioned earlier, as a great area on this market to look for a potential bullish opportunity in this area. Of course, depending on the evidence and how it forms in this important zone, and a potential move to the upside, potentially move all the way up to the 1561 zone area, or potentially even higher on this market in the trend. So overall on silver this week, holding the 1480 zone area as a potential target area to the downside, potential long-term target area to the downside for all those people holding a sell trade on this market from the recent test of the 1561 zone area, and also holding the 1480 zone area as a great area on this market to consider a potential bullish opportunity in this area and look for a potential move the upside from this important zone. Potentially look for a move all the way up, all the way back up to the 1561 zone area, or potentially even higher on this market in the trend. Okay, well that's it for that market. The next pillar to highlight is Euro GBP, and on the daily chart, last week in price action, Euro GBP continued to decline after the recent test of the 90-cent area, which is a potential bearish reference area on this market. And as you can see, last week price continued to decline to the downside from this bearish event zone, and now price is getting close to the 87 zone area. And what I'd like to highlight is the 87 zone area, that this is a great target area, great potential long-term target area to the downside for all those people holding a sell trade on this market from the recent test of the 90-cent zone area. And also wanting to highlight the 87 zone area as not only a potential long-term target area to the downside, but also that this is an area on this market, a great area on this market to look for a potential bullish opportunity in this area and look for a potential move the upside, of course depending on the evidence and how it forms in this important zone, depending on the price action, and look for a potential move all the way up to this previous high area, looking left as a potential management point area to the upside, or potentially look for a move all the way up, all the way back up to the 90-cent zone area to the upside. So overall on Euro GBP, holding a potential long-term target area to the downside for all these people that are holding a sell trade on this market from the recent test of the 90-cent zone area, and also holding the 87 zone area as a great area on this market to look for a potential bullish opportunity and a potential move the upside, potentially move all the way up, potentially all the way back up to the 90-cent zone area to the upside. Okay, well that's it for that market. The next pillar to cover is CAD Swiss, and I'm on the daily chart. Over the last few weeks of price action, CAD Swiss has been very strong ever since price came down to this price point down here. Price moved all the way up, breaking above the 73.15 zone area, then moved all the way up to the 74 zone area, breaking above that important zone, and now price is getting very close after another move to the upside last week, close to testing the 75.30 zone area. And on this market, what I'd like to highlight is two important zones. The first zone I'd like to highlight is where price is getting very close to testing, which is the 75.30 zone area, as a great area on this market to look for a potential bearish opportunity in this area and look for a potential move to the downside. Potentially look for a move all the way down to the 74 zone area to the downside. Now the other zone I'd like to mention on this market this week is the 74 zone area, and in the case of the 74 zone area, this is a great area on this market to look for a potential bullish opportunity in this area and a potential move the upside, potentially move all the way up to the 75.30 zone area. And also want to mention the 74 zone area is a great area on this market in the trend. At the moment, this market is in an uptrend, and this is a great pullback area in the trend to look for potential continuation to the upside on a pullback. So overall, on the 75.30 zone area as a great area on this market to look for a potential bearish opportunity in this area and a potential with the downside, and also on the 74 zone area as a great area on this market to look for a potential bullish opportunity in this area and a potential move the upside from this important zone. Okay, well that's it for that market. The next pillar to cover is Euro New Zealand, and I'm on the daily chart. My bias hasn't changed on Euro New Zealand. I'm still expecting more continuation to the downside, potentially all the way down to the 165.73 zone area, which is a potential bullish reference area on this market. At the moment, and last week in price action, this market supported on this previous high. So market's a bit sideways at this high area, which is a potential management point area on this market for all those people holding a sell trade on this market from the recent test of the 171.26 zone area. So overall, holding that I'm expecting, like I mentioned last week, expecting continuation further to the downside, potentially all the way down to the 165.73 zone area, which is a potential long-term tail area to the downside for all those people holding a sell trade from the 171.26 zone area. And also want to mention the 165.73 zone area as a great area on this market to look for a potential bullish opportunity in this area. Of course, depending on the evidence and how it forms in this important zone. And a potential with the upside, potentially move all the way up to this previous high, looking left, as a potential management point area to the upside and this low, or potentially look for a move all the way up to the 171.26 zone area to the upside. Okay, well that's it for that market, and that's it for me for this week's edition of the review. Thanks for watching. If you appreciate this video today, please do not forget to click the like button to show your support. Every like and comment is appreciated. Actually, let's see if we can get over 500 likes on this video this week. Also, if you haven't checked out the Forex training on the website, such as the Engulfing Trader, the 5-day training series, the Counseling training series, or the Zone Trade training series, where you can find out all about this Forex training by clicking on the links below this video. Okay, well, I hope you all have a great trading week and happy trading.